Welcome back to Football Talk with Xavier. Today we're going to be going over my 2025 NFL mock draft after a few days of NFL free agency. With the first pick of the 2025 NFL draft, you have the Tennessee Titans, and Abdul Carter had his meeting with the Titans and left that meeting knowing that he was going to be the number 1 overall pick. So I'm going to make the easy pick here and go Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns still haven't gotten their quarterback. I believe they're meeting with Russell Wilson today to see if maybe he'll come there, but it's looking like he's going to end up on the Giants. Therefore, I want to go with the quarterback here for them, but I still think Travis Hunter's the best player on the board right here. But something's telling me the Browns aren't going to get a quarterback, so they're most likely going to end up taking a guy out of Miami named Cam Ward. Next up, we've got the New York Giants. Now, the New York Giants, like I said, they're going to get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. So their quarterback position is locked up for at least this year, probably next year. And next year's draft class is a lot more stacked at the quarterback position. Therefore, I have the New York Giants going with Travis Hunter, getting the best player on the board, getting someone to pair with Darius Slayton and Malik Neighbors, who will also be a lockdown corner for you out there. Next up, we got the New England Patriots. Now, in my former mock drafts, I had the New England Patriots going with Tet McMillan, but the more film I watch on Tet, the more I realize he is not a very capable run blocker, and in a Mike Vrabel scheme, you need to be able to block pretty well. He has the frame to do it, so I don't know why, if it's just bad coaching or what, but I'm going to actually have them taking an O-lineman here, and typically most people have James Daniels out of LSU, but I believe because of his shorter arms, he's probably going to play guard in the league, so I have Armand Membu out of Missouri going here. He's a really, really excellent player who tested extremely well at the combine. Next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think this is another easy pick in this draft. Go Mason Graham out of Michigan. Sure up that interior D-line. One of my elite players in this draft, even though there are only a few. Next up, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. And my favorite pick for them, now that they've gotten Geno Smith, they're probably going to have a quarterback for a few years. It's either Ashton Jeanty or Tet McMillan, whether you feel like you need a running back more or a receiver more. I believe this draft class is more stacked at running back than receiver, so it leads me to believe you're probably going to go wide receiver, but also Ashton Jeanty is special. And we saw what Pete Carroll could do in Seattle when he had Marshawn Lynch, so I like them going Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State here. If not, they're definitely going to go Shedeur McMillan. Next up, we got the New York Jets. Now, the Jets just signed Justin Fields to a 2-year contract, so they're not going quarterback. And what that ultimately means is they're either going to get another receiver to pair up with Garrett Wilson since they let Devontae Adams go, or they're going to go defense, maybe even O-line. But what I personally think they're going to end up doing is going Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Really, really incredible corner who's probably going to play in the slot in the NFL, but can also play at the outside positions. Next up, you've got the Carolina Panthers, and the Panthers here, you need help on that defense because your defense was terrible last season. But what I like you doing is going Tet McMillan. You just re-signed Adam Thielen, but you know Adam Thielen's not a long-term answer, and Shedeur McMillan will help continue to develop Bryce Young as he continues to try to become a franchise quarterback for them. Next up, you got the New Orleans Saints. Now, I don't see how, if you're New Orleans, you don't go offense here. I see a lot of people going defense for them, but once Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill went down last season for them, it was really apparent that offense just sucked. Plain, flat out sucked. They re-signed Derek Carr, so you're still probably not going to go quarterback. But part of me thinks maybe you still do. Maybe you go Shedeur Sanders and you allow him to develop for a year or two. That's what I would personally do, even though I don't think Shedeur is a top 10 player in this draft. I just think you're desperate for a quarterback, so why not take him at number 9? Next up, you got the Chicago Bears. They need O-line help. They got some in free agency and making trades so far at both guard and center. Like I said, I think Will Campbell is going to ultimately play guard in the NFL, but I think he's talented enough he can make it work out at tackle, so I have them taking Will Campbell. Make the easy pick there. Don't overthink it. Next up, you got the 49ers. They have pretty much let everyone on their roster go right now, so it's a hard situation of knowing what they're going to do. I thought they were going to get Joey Bosa and pair him up with Nick Bosa, but that didn't happen. So you could use an edge rusher. You could use an interior D lineman, help on that O-line. But what I ultimately see you doing is I'd probably go Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. Sure up that tackle spot. get your replacement for Trent Williams after he retires, help continue to protect that blind side for Brock Purdy. Next up, you got the Dallas Cowboys. Now, if you're the Cowboys, you really wish that Ashton Jeanty was here, but he's not. So you're ultimately put into a position of, hey, we need another receiver to help out with CeeDee Lamb. We need a running back still, but I think that can be taken later on in the draft. You need an edge rusher, which is what I ultimately see you doing. I thought you were going to maybe pursue Myles Garrett, but after he re-signed with the Cleveland Browns, you're in a situation of tackle or edge rusher. So what I ultimately like them doing is going Mike Green out of Marshall. Really great player from a smaller school who dominated the Senior Bowl. I think it's just a really great pick there. Next up, you got the Dolphins. Take the easy pick, replace Javon Holland with someone who's probably even better in Malachi Starks out of Georgia. Just a blue-collar guy who's going to come in and be an elite player in the NFL almost immediately. Next up, you got the Colts. I don't know what the Colts are doing. I think they need a quarterback, but it doesn't look like they're pursuing any really, so maybe they're just pushing that off till next year, and they're going to take Tyler Warren, who's the best player here in the draft. Next up, you got pick 15. If you're a Falcons fan, you know how bad you need a pass rusher, so make the easy pick, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Next up, you got the Arizona Cardinals. You need O-line help, interior D-line help. You could use a corner, it wouldn't kill you. You could use another receiver, it wouldn't kill you. So ultimately, what do you have everyone valued at? And me personally, if I was a Cardinals fan, I would want O-line help. I'd go Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Help Kyler Murray out. Really get to know, is he going to be your future, or are you looking to replace him? And the only way you can do that is if you get the roster around him that is going to benefit him. Next up, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals. You just franchise tag T. Higgins, so you're probably not going to go Luther Burden here, even though I really like that pick. You probably need a corner, an interior D lineman, a pass rusher, because you're going to trade Trey Hendrickson. So what I ultimately like them doing is going Will Johnson out of Michigan, a player who maybe doesn't have the long speed that we would have loved to see. We'll see that at his pro day in the next few weeks, but really great corner. Help to replace some of those guys that you let walk because they just weren't playing up to the level that you need them to in the NFL. Next up, you got the Seattle Seahawks. You need O-line help. You just traded away your entire roster pretty much and picked up Sam Darnold and DeMarcus Lawrence. So what do? You go linebacker, but you just re-sign Ernest Jones. So I don't think that really makes sense. I would go Luther Burden III, pair up another receiver. Maybe try to get an O-lineman in the later rounds of the draft. I just think Luther Burden is a special talent to still be here at pick number 18, especially when you let go of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Next up, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is my home run pick of the draft, Jihad Campbell at pick 19 for the Buccaneers. You're losing your linebackers in free agency, so let's just make it easy for them right there. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos. Are you going to get a wide receiver? You just signed Evan Ingram, so I don't think you're going to go tight end like I've had you doing in the past here. You could use a safety, a linebacker. I really like Nick Amamori out of South Carolina, who had a great combine, a really special player who can make some impact plays for you, so I love that pick there. Next up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're either going with Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, most likely Aaron Rodgers, but he's kind of playing games with you right now. So you could use a nose tackle on your D-line. Are you going to make that pick in the first round, though? Maybe, maybe not. You just got Darius Slay, so you could get another corner who can help learn from him and develop. You could probably use a receiver. I personally like Calvin Austin, so I don't think you need to go with another guy unless you're getting rid of George Pickens, and I think they may be. So I really like Emeka Egbuka here out of Ohio State. Easy pick, get you a great player, and just continue to live another day. Next up, you got the Chargers. I think this is one of the easier picks of the draft. You go either Matthew Golden out of Texas, or you go Colston Loveland, reunite him with Jim Harbaugh. But I think there's just a bigger need on receiver for them, honestly. And Matthew Golden ran a 4.2 at the combine, so that I don't see him slipping outside of the top 22 picks. But at the same time, I just think Jim Harbaugh would love a tight end rather than a receiver, so I got Colston Loveland. Next up, the Packers need a receiver really bad, so that's where I'm going to have Matthew Golden going. Next up, you got the Minnesota Vikings. That could use help on the O-line, on the interior, the D-line, even though they just signed 2 guys in free agency. They're on the older side of things, so do you want to sign a guy, help him learn, or would you rather go into Super Bowl mode now? I think that's really what they're doing. I think they trust JJ McCarthy and they think they can compete for a Super Bowl in the next 2 seasons. So what I ultimately have them doing is going with Amari Hampton out of North Carolina. You just re-signed Aaron Jones to a 2-year deal, but I think Amari Hampton fits him really, really well, and I love that pick up there for them. Next up, we got the Texans. You just traded for Christian Kirk. You trade away Laramie Tunsil. So I don't really know what you're doing at the moment, but I like you to go interior D-line with Kenneth Grant or O-line with Gray Zabel. So I'm probably going to have you taking Gray Zabel because I think that's just a bigger need, especially after trading away Laramie Tunsil. Next up, you got the LA Rams. You just got Devontae Adams, so you probably have one of the most stacked offenses in the entire NFL. But you've got to continue to shore up that defense. I like Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Really great, explosive edge who can play both on the edge and you can line up all over if you really need to. Next up, you got the Baltimore Ravens, and I think the Ravens need another receiver. They just got D-Hop, but I don't think that was really a needle pusher of a move there for you. You could also use a pass rusher. That's what I'm going to have them doing here. I really, really like Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. This guy weighs over 250 pounds and ran a 4.5 40-yard dash. Tested really well in the vertical, really explosive athlete whose tape doesn't look incredible in terms of the stats, but when you really dive into the tape, you see that there were a lot of situations where he could have gotten more sacks. So I like him. Hopefully he can be more productive at the NFL level. Next up, you got the Lions. They're a hard one for me. I really think that you need to just continue to shore up that defense, add more depth, maybe get a corner, maybe get somebody who can help play linebacker and rush the passer. And my favorite guy for that would honestly be a guy like Jalen Walker out of Georgia, or maybe even Walter Nolan on the interior there. But I really just like the pick of Jalen Walker here at 28. Next up, we got the Washington Commanders. You just traded away your D-tackle, your franchise D-tackle, and Jonathan Allen. So I like you just instantly replacing him with Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. Really, really great player. Really explosive and disruptive on that interior. Next up, you got the Buffalo Bills. You're in a position here where you've got your quarterback locked up for the next 10 years. So you're continuing to try to just build around him and compete for a Super Bowl, something you've been trying to do and you've been struggling with. But I like Kenneth Grant here out of Michigan. Shore up that run defense. Next up, you got the Chiefs. These contracts are starting to catch up to you. You don't look as competitive. I say that. You've came off multiple Super Bowl appearances, but you've seen over the years that the offense is just less and less productive. Xavier Worthy was a great pick last year. I think you continue to just build up at positions of need here. And I like Derek Harmon out of Oregon or Josh Connerly Jr. And it comes down to, do you need interior D-line help more or do you need offensive line help? I think it's offensive line. It's been one of the weaker parts of your team for a few years now, so I love that pick. Next up, you got the Eagles. You're really in a spot to just go best player available, except for the fact that you let Josh Sweat walk, so you probably need a pass rusher. And you've got Donovan out of Boston College. You got Nick Skirleton out of Texas A&M. You've got some interior D-line guys. You got some cornerbacks. I really like Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. I think that would be a great pairing with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. So that's what I personally have them doing, but that could go anywhere else. I think their roster is so stacked that they may even trade up, trade down. They could do all types of things, but I really like Trey Amos here. And that concludes my 2025 NFL mock draft. Post the first few days of NFL free agency. Let me know down below what you think and what your favorite team did in this draft. Thanks for watching.